All right.
Jacob, Justin from Stylist Substance, Zach, your cult boyfriend. We watched Slumber Party Massacre 2. What year did it come out?
1980.
7, I think.
I think you're right. I think it is.
Seven. Yeah, it's 87.
Yeah.
Good year.
This was a Jacob selection.
It was.
A wild movie. Jacob, why did you pick it? I quite enjoyed it, but why did you pick it?
I saw it for the first time a week ago. No, I was planning to, I think, recommend The Funhouse. Toby Weaver's The Funhouse. And then I watched this on a whim one night with no context, no idea what it was. And I think within 5 minutes of it ending, I messaged you and said, we're watching Slumber Party Massacre too. I loved this. I loved this.
It won me over within the opening with her sleeping and then the slow-mo of like the shirtless Bo like running like the football and shit.
Oh, the head you got. Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
so good. It's so good. Right from the beginning, it is so good and so fucking weird. I've seen the original. I think I'm the only one here who's seen the first one, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen the first one.
I don't know why, but I refuse. Because
I feel like
Massacre 2 is so good. I don't need an origin. I don't.
No, I mean, there's not much in the way of context. The lead girl from this is in the first one, but that's about where it starts and stops as far
So
as
this killer
context.
is a new invention here. This rockabilly Norman Bates dude is a new person.
Yeah, granted, it's been a couple years since I saw it, but as I recall, the villain of the first movie is just a dude.
That's literally my favorite character in the piece.
In what?
In the movie, it's definitely the killer.
Oh, the killer. Yeah, as far as I know, he has no name. Yeah, the rockabilly wannabe metal dude. I love him. Rock and roll. Who only talks in music quotes. My favorite. I know we talked before about the snapping scene, but my other favorite one is the last two girls run away and he goes, "I can't get no satisfaction." It's so funny.
Oh, no, I have no we didn't talk for these people about. Well, yeah, I don't even know where to start. Yeah, my favorite part of the movie is definitely that end where there is only like two girls left, and it's Courtney, and it's like it's Amy Kimberly MacArthur, who looks extremely like Misha Barton from the OC. I'm not being fucking crazy. She's actually awesome in this movie. And but that's my favorite part of the movie is there's only two girls left, and the killer gets that whole musical number.
It's so good.
I mean, he gets at least 4 musical numbers. There's a lot of musical numbers in this.
Well, I would say it's one,
but the one like
one
I've got a button.
it's one extended one.
Well, I guess there are 3 girls left, but the whole song ends with him buzzing the last girl like with the like body double style or whatever.
Yeah,
it's your Gene Kelly big finale where it's like the 20-minute musical number,
and it fucking delivered. I had no idea we'd get to there from like the first musical number of Amy and Courtney in the car singing "I wanna be your Tokyo convertible, I wanna make love to you" or some shit.
Which is in a movie that's already exceedingly gay, the gayest scene of this movie, or I'll say the second gayest scene of this movie. Granted,
during the pillow fight where they actually where it gets fucking wild. I think they're watching a Deborah Brock movie, right? They're watching like Rock and Roll High School or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't.
They're actually watching one of the filmmakers' earlier films on there. I don't know where to start. I actually want to sit back for a second and let you two go at it because you two are far more forgiving to surrealism than me. I will just say, I think that Roger Corman produced this film. I think that Roger Corman accidentally hired a director who fancies herself an auteur, and I think it's like really well made and good. I refuse to engage with it.
I mean, there's a clearer agenda with the first one. Again, it's weird because I'm the only one that's seen it. The first one, as I recall, is directed by a woman who's openly gay, and so the subtext is pretty clear there, especially the drill and so on and so forth. It's pretty clear with the imagery in the first one. This one, it's way harder to parse. It's way harder to parse. I think it interacts with those ideas from the first movie, but it kind of, I don't know, like destabilizes them, and it goes into a weird place where the images it chooses to use are far harder to, I don't know, like ascribe to any concept or idea. It's weird.
But it feels like that's my problem with surrealism. Is I feel like you can do it, but obviously that missing jigsaw piece is missing deliberately.
I mean,
before you guys go at it on it, I do want to say my favorite fucking character. I think Justin's favorite character too. We have to toast the fucking DJ.
DJ.
Which one's
provides-
DJ? I didn't learn their names. I'm terrible at
That
that.
dude is amazing.
Is he the guy, the friend, the one of the two bros with the darker hair? Yeah,
Yes.
no, I love that guy.
Perfect character. Oh my god. Amazing. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead.
Gnarly.
I love those guys. As soon as they entered the movie, I was so much happier.
The sex doll belonged to like the girl's brother, and then he was like screwing with it. Like,
it's great.
I loved the seduction scene with him and like his girl, and he's just reading from the trashy novel to her until she's like in the mood. He's like, "Whose shot feels her like?" And like, anything yet, bad? No. Okay. What about this part? Like, DJ was so fucking cool.
well, cool. I don't know about cool.
I know about cool. I know about fucking cool.
Yeah,
No, it was cool.
he like just like grabs that girl and starts like doing like this fake like baptism, and then like she can't like swim or something, or just in the moment she's caught off. She's like shocked, and she goes under the water, and then after she's brought back up, she's like she has to like do mouth to mouth or whatever. He's brought back, and then he's just like, I'm sorry about that, but how's your headache?
Awesome.
Oh
Now,
yeah, I love it.
Great. I love DJ as a character. I think like he is to this movie what Sean William Scott is to Final Destination.
Yeah, a little bit.
What did you think of the film, Justin?
Well, I want to know what Jacob.
I mean, should we set the stage for the movie more? I don't know.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
I feel like there is
Yeah, go ahead.
some framework at play, which is
Yeah.
broadly
what is that
that
framework?
fuck.
Right.
That because this girl is one of the survivors of the first movie, so the broad stroke of the movie is that it's
Right.
dealing with her PTSD.
Yeah, and I haven't
afterwards.
seen that, but you have.
It's mostly irrelevant. Like they cover that, I think, in the first 5 minutes, which is to say you survived a serial killer incident, and from there, that's all. You're good. You're good. You have the context you need. It's just strange because the PTSD angle is pretty straightforward, but it's the form it takes for her is so bizarre and odd, which is that it's this again
It's a series of
rockabilly-
montages, right? Like,
yeah, it's a series of montages, nightmare sequences. I actually, before I watched it, and this is not me that noticed this. I saw several people comment on this before watching it, which is that it reminds them of David Lynch. And I saw that at first. I was like, all right, it's 2021. Everything is Lynchian. Every new movie that comes out is Lynchian. So I didn't really buy it. And then I watched it. And I heard the weird like reverb bass line in the dream sequence, and this rock star figure as your killer. And I was like, okay, that kind of is a David Lynch movie, which is this bizarre mishmash of Americana and like weird iconography, that like this weird like pop culture imagery that doesn't seem to have any.
It kind of like this blend of like postmodernism and like surrealism. I think that it definitely has that, but I think unlike Lynch, this embraces more not just queerness or like kind of like implied.
I mean, there's a queer component to Lynch, but
there is, but I think a lot of it's almost like unapologetic femininity as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Especially with like the color, the different colors of like the wardrobes and set design. I really appreciate that aspect about it. It's also kind of about like the way it's filmed too, like the way it's like. I mean, it has some of the inverse of male gaze or female gaze of looking at the man towards the beginning that's like running with a football or something. But likewise, you get something similar, kind of almost like this like lesbian gaze.
It's incredibly gay.
when they're
in the car, like singing.
No, not
with
just in
each
the
other.
car, but no, when they're actually at the slumber party and they take their.
They have like a 10-minute pillow fight where they all get naked. Like it's incredibly gay.
Well, one of them gets naked.
Yeah, fair enough. But,
not all of them.
But no, again, I don't know the story with this director. To be fair, compared to the first one, I feel that element is pretty explicit in a movie that's otherwise incredibly vague. I feel like that's the most explicit component of it, is that it's just incredibly gay. You know, especially considering the it seems one of our lead heroines core issues here is that like men they keep saying like go all the way or like don't go all the way with this man, and she just wants to hang out with her girlfriends instead, you know. But although there's kind of, I guess, more of a bisexual element just because she actually is interested in this man, but she also seems uncomfortable around other
men. I think it's also about not necessarily queer in that sense, but I think there's a queer component to it, embracing queerness, but I think it's also embracing the potentiality of like female solidarity, like amongst each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Of course, they're regular Josie and the Pussycats. I love the fucking dancing, man.
Which ones?
The songs are good, by the way. The songs
fucking not Misha Barton's dancing. Like, Amy's that was awesome.
The singer, or
no, it was like one of the guitar players.
Oh,
I think her and Courtney were doing the same like synchronized like back and forth.
Yeah, no, they're good songs.
Like, Courtney listens to her own band's demo while she tries to go to sleep from a bad nightmare too. That's pretty cool. The thing I did find like legitimately interesting, I don't know, picked up on it on the second rewatch because I watched it once when you told me we were doing it, and then I convinced Justin to do it. So I watched it again then. I just need a bit of a refresher because Amy and Courtney have a conversation after one of Courtney's first public breakdowns about like, is it like about the self, like leaving the self?
Yeah, what was that?
She does have a line about
that.
I
remember that. I don't remember the exact line, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, that's the framework for where I found it to be kind of interesting too. Like legitimately, I can only really think of Fellini doing this really well, and I hate to bring up like La Dolce Vita when comparing it to this movie, but still, I'm going to. Like the point of view shots in this movie when a character is like looking directly like into camera, like Fellini would do that in La Dolce Vita too, but it'd be like there's like a double person. Like the person's eyes doesn't actually match up with where Marcello is like supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like as this film goes on, like the POV shots are like very straightforward. Like I'm looking directly at you.
It's sort of like meta. There's almost like confronting the camera. That the camera is relative to where.
That's how it starts. But as the movie goes on, like those perspectives get ruined. Like we see that she's lying down on the couch, and the person's supposed to be looking directly at the couch, and then they show that that's not actually where she actually is. She popped out of frame in like a different spot. Like so that makes you think of the projected self. Like they're looking at like her projected self somewhere. Like there's a double life going on in the same way that Fellini did it in La Dolce Vita.
It's a double life, but it's also kind of about like the incongruity between like oneself and then also like the image that they projected in front of other people, and it's kind of it's reflecting then how that relates to the camera and how the camera captures subjects.
I think Deborah Brock did that like pretty well. Like that was actually done like excellently and subtly. I didn't pick up on it until the second time that the POV shots were stopping matching, and that like there was a projected self being projected out, and the POVs were looking at different selves.
It's addressing kind of like this artificiality, aspect of it,
which is so weird because the film is increasingly artificial.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I think that's like in tune with itself. Where it's almost like confronting that artificiality.
No, I think Deborah Brock knows exactly what she's doing in this. Like exactly what she's doing. It feels very deliberate.
It feels really deliberate. But I was talking to Zach about this, where we were kind of contemplating, like, especially like towards like the first half. There's a lot of what I would call interesting oniric editing. I was actually really it actually made me really tired when I was watching it. To be fair, I was also a long day. I didn't get sleep the night before. I was out night partying before, but when watching this, I was like, I got so sleepy, but it's almost like kind of like in a good way. It's almost like it's very dreamlike. It bathed in its own lyricism. The thing I was talking to Zach about is while I do think the director accomplishes something interesting and unique, I do wonder how much of it is actually like how much of it is deliberate. Whereas I know that she has her own path that she wants to do with this film, but I'm not entirely sure if it's exactly how she thinks it is, if that makes sense. I mean, it's a Roger Corman film, ultimately, right? Because it's like produced by him, right? Like,
yeah. I mean,
that's probably why we have so many oversexed parts, right? To fit a quota for Corman.
Maybe, but at the same time, maybe she's also embracing that like female to female like bond.
Yeah, because that element
like
is in the first one as well, which I think was like largely under that director's control. It's hard to say. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it was like they both had their own, agendas or intentions with it.
Let's bounce off of your reading of the film. I think you have a stronger attachment to it. Like, what do you get? What do you get from it?
It's so I've been trying to figure out more than anything the pop culture element of it. I feel like it might be shooting for this the things that make her uncomfortable are perpetuated by the pop culture around her, like music, media, film. But I'm not sure because it keeps going back on that a little bit. It's a really, I don't know how to kind of, is Ouroboros a word? Like it's like it keeps looping back into itself. Like it'll present some reading and then kind of undermine that reading only to reinforce it later. It's disorienting, but I find it that an interesting way, and that's why it reminds me of Lynch, because just because of those inconsistencies, those contradicting itself, but kind of knowingly contradicting itself. Because I think this is more.
Yes, I think it's paradoxical like Lynch, but I think like to compare it to Lynch simply, I don't know, like it's a product of like surrealism. Maybe there's some postmodernism in there too, but like I just don't. I think like the difference between this and Lynch is this is too. I think like Lynch. This is too it's too feminist, too queer for Lynch, I think. Like in terms, and in that sense, I think it's not to say that Lynch doesn't have queerness.
It's better than Lynch.
Mulholland Drive is definitely a queer film. Like
I have a lot of thoughts on that comment, but like it's too much to get into here because it's not really relevant. But I mean, I was gonna say honestly that I don't really find. I don't know if this is a weird take, but either particularly surreal. I think that's kind of overstated in both because of their clarity.
What would you call it then, Jacob? What would you call this?
Pop art? I don't know, because I will say on the subject of its of intention here, I do think there's an arc of the. I think as it goes on, the perspective becomes increasingly destabilized. I don't think it's like an incoherent thing or even an unbalanced thing, because I think the first half of the film is incredibly straightforward in its construction, like it's very normal in terms of narrative construction. But then by the last leg of the movie, even what we're supposed to take as reality is itself shot just like the nightmare sequences. And so as it goes on, I think it becomes progressively destabilized.
Aren't some of like the nightmare sequences like just like premonitions for what is to come?
Yeah, that's why.
It's like a consolidation of like fact and fiction, like the artifice of film, and also like the more documented reality, mixing together and expressed through montage. But the thing is, all films like they're made up of montage when it comes down to it.
But it's not just montage; it's like staccato editing montage. It's like surrealist tools montage.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's surrealist. Yeah. I guess I would like to say that I do think that there's definitely some queerness that you could like extrapolate from Lynch and especially Mulholland Drive. Maybe some Twin Peaks too. But the thing about this movie is Slumber Camp. What was called Slumber? I saw Sleepaway Camp not long ago. Slumber Party Massacre 2, right? Okay, I almost said Sleepaway Camp. Okay, but the thing about this movie is what I'm saying is like I think like to just reduce it to pop art, I think that sort of strips it away from like the how much it champions surrealism, and then not just that, but then how it like mixes queerness with surrealism. Sounds like queer surrealism, and in that sense, I think you could probably. I can maybe even like find some parallel between this and like Gregor Rocky's films in some ways.
Maybe a little. I can see that. I can see that.
But other this is from a female director.
I do think there to some extent surrealism, whether intentionally or not, is kind of just inherently queer in some way.
Or queerness is inherently surrealist.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I don't think there's anything reductive about calling something pop art. Like
I say that as someone who's like
but Jacob's saying that it's pop art instead of surrealism. But I think it's a bit of both.
I'd agree with that. It's a little bit of both. That was more kind of a.
Oh no, you didn't say it was reductive. Implied it was reductive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm thinking more just because of uh, I think
That just reduces
I
it.
think more of pop art than surrealism watching this, because the most surreal or weird elements of it are explicitly elements of pop culture that are just divorced from their usual context and placed
But
into
like you
this in a way
said,
that's bizarre.
it's slightly incoherent though. So what is the
It
difference
is. It's
between like
incredibly
her
incoherent.
band's rock and roll and the Killer's rock and roll, besides masculine and feminine? And if that is the difference, then that's fucking boring. Like, what is the difference?
I don't know.
I think
It's
that is the difference.
If that is the
yeah.
difference, that fucking sucks.
No, I don't, like I said, I feel like
Or
my
I think
initial
it's specifically a
reaction
straight masculinity though. Like, I don't know.
my
I
initial
mean,
reaction was that it was just
he
like the
does shove phallic
culture.
objects into DJ and the other dude, though.
Oh
There's
no, and
still
that's intentional. That's a big part of the first movie, is that like the drill is very explicitly supposed to be like a phallic symbol. Like it's not supposed to be subtle in
yeah,
any way.
in
It's
the same way
very
De
on the
Palma
nose
would
about
use
it,
it.
and they carry that over to this one. Like it's very intentional. It's one of that's probably the most postmodern touch of it, is that it's so obvious that it's not almost a joke at that point. Like, but I don't know.
I don't mind that too
Again,
much.
my initial reading was that as a musician, he's more just supposed to reflect a culture that perpetuates these attitudes. You know, like rock music perpetuates or teaches men to act this way. But
Yeah.
the weird part about it is that, like, aside from him, the men in this movie aren't really bad people. I mean, like, the two friends are dude bros and they're inconsiderate idiots, but they're not like, explicitly hostile, evil
Well,
people.
they come off as groupies. Remember when DJ and the other dude are
Yeah.
watching them perform, and they're like getting really like they're just
And they
loving
have
it.
like this weird, open romance thing with each other too, or at least a few of the girls and the two guys. And then the one guy our hero is into, he's in any other movie he would like turn out to be some horrible human being, but here he's just a
Oh,
nice person who ends up getting murdered for no reason.
how about some
Um
surprise cake?
but
Oh, yeah,
no,
he just puts the cake on the bed and with the.
yeah, that was so weird, because especially because they start fucking with like
Oh,
a cake on the bed, and I was like,
okay,
bro, don't do that.
okay. Off topic, but relates to food. Why were they eating kangaroo burgers?
Huh?
Yeah, the burgers they're eating.
I don't
She
know.
has a nightmare that it's like a hand inside of a burger, but it's actually. But then it's like, oh, it's not. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's just kangaroo meat like the rest of us.
I don't know. I don't know.
It caught me
I,
off guard. I like it though. I dig it.
I think
I,
he's just making fun of the fact that they're not eating good meat.
yeah. I don't know. I
Although
guess.
Yeah, like same old.
I took it. But I don't. Well, that's the thing. If it's not meant to be taken literally, I don't know what I'm supposed to take literally. And
Well, no, yeah, that's what I was like.
I took it literally within the context of the film. It's almost like everything that's as quirky as possible.
No,
Well,
I
'cause we
wouldn't
just saw
say
a
it's
hand in-
aiming for quirkiness in any sense.
What would you call? Okay.
No,
Well,
yeah,
I
Amy
guess.
wasn't quirky. She wasn't at all.
I guess what it comes
yeah.
down to for me, and I think this is why it fascinated me to watch, was that some elements of it are so clear in what they're trying to evoke, but then surrounding them and reinforcing them are elements that just seem so disparate from each other. But I find just this simple collection of iconography it chooses to interact with it fascinating in itself. Like I find it fascinating that the villain of the movie, who's for all intents and purposes just a Freddy Krueger ripoff, but like
Well, you
he's
might
more
live.
of a god than Freddy Krueger. Like this dude, you never understand why or what the extent of his control over these people's lives is, and it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that there's this godlike force out to get this girl who just happens to be a rock star who sings songs and only speaks in references to classic rock and Rolling Stones lyrics. There's a queer element. The cops in this movie are horrible people that can't be trusted. It's just this weird, interesting mishmash of
Yes.
elements and images that my best guess is that there isn't necessarily like an intended kind of linking of all the pieces. It's just those were the pieces that interested the directors and writers of the movie.
Right.
And they just decided to compile them and see whatever it evokes in you to some extent. And I don't necessarily mean that in like a David Lynch way. I this is why, like, I think it's the fact that they choose specifically like weird, easily identifiable pop iconography, but it's still like, I don't know. It's weird. It's again, and I mostly think of David Lynch just because I feel like a serial killer who looks like a rock musician is something David Lynch would do, just because, you know, he wrote a movie and a TV show where the plot is, yeah, the human embodiment of evil and the evil of men. What does he look like? He looks like a fucking garbage man who wearing a denim jacket who hasn't had a haircut in 2 years. Like, I don't know why, it has that weird link in my head, but I think Lynch, to some extent, is more conscious of the consequences of what he's doing than people give him credit for. And I think I don't say it to this film's detriment that I think it's less considerate of those consequences. I think that's kind of why I'm interested in it. It's just interesting, you know what I mean? It's interesting to me.
Well, it's fascinating. And like, also, like, the people who are cast in this movie, like, this is a very artful movie. I think it's like a pretty artistic, like, these are Playboy bunnies, like, running around in this surrealist pop art universe. Like, no, they're literal Playboy bunnies.
Yeah,
like, I looked them up. Like, just to see what they were in or whatever. I don't have to justify myself to anyone.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense.
And yet they're running around this like this pop art playground of surrealist motifs, and no, I'm sorry. You said it wasn't incoherent. I think it's incoherent and unbalanced, but in a really good way.
Well,
especially unbalanced. Because you said narratively it made perfect sense. The massacre doesn't happen to the last 15 minutes of the
I would.
Oh yeah. For the record, like, an hour of this movie is just girls hanging out, and only like the last act do they start murdering people.
Well, I would argue that the whole fact that it's incoherent, that's what makes it more interesting to me, because that's more dreamlike.
Yeah, I agree.
It's more dreamlike.
I agree.
I wouldn't just be defending it on the basis of that it is coherent. I think that's what makes it good. It felt like a dream. It felt like a fever dream. There's a reason why I took a nap for a little bit right afterwards. Like, I mean, it's good.
I guess the only reason I don't call it incoherent is because I think, technically speaking, like, it does make sense within
paradoxically.
It makes sense. It just deprives us of some information, you know. It doesn't tell us why this dude exists or why he's God.
Jacob, you could say that for any movie that was something being incoherent.
Not really, because
it just deprives us of the relevant information to make it coherent.
No, I mean, like, I mean, compared to something like Nightmare on Elm Street, which is the easiest analog for this movie, like, you get an answer for why Freddy is. It doesn't make any logical, rational sense, but you're given an answer at least. Like, you're like, Freddy Krueger, he was like, yeah, he was killed, and he just came back from the dead, because, I don't know, he made a deal with Satan? Who cares? You just know some evil force kept this man alive. Maybe, like, his own horribleness and evil, like, existed beyond. This, you don't get that. There's just an element of like
with Nightmare on Elm Street, you could link that like thematically, at least you can call that kind of like
exactly
like trauma, like, and how trauma persists even long after the person's death.
This is also doing that, to be fair.
Oh, you think I haven't seen the first one, so maybe.
No, I mean, just implicitly, that's what this is doing. It's you know, she survived.
Do you think that Deborah Brock thinks that this film is obvious?
I don't know or care.
That's what Zach kind of.
I think she probably thinks the PTSD element is pretty clear, and I would agree. That element is clear. It's really just a matter of like this movie is about someone who just experienced something horrible, and now she has nightmares about it. She has trouble like acting quote unquote normal in situations with friends, and so her friends support her through that, so on and so forth. So like that element is clear. It's just the only part of this that's weird is like, why does her trauma manifest itself in this way specifically? Why, like other movies make it very clear, like their I don't know, their dad was killed by a person who looked a specific way, so now they have nightmares of a guy that looks like that. But this, why the rock star? It doesn't. There's no like.
That's what I was trying to say, though.
What she's Yeah. Okay. Then yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. But I don't necessarily think that's incoherent. I just think it's like
Well,
a weird choice.
To me, it's more like
it doesn't matter if it's incoherent, in my opinion.
No, I just think it's a weird choice because I don't know why that was chosen. I on some level I don't really care, but I don't know. It's,
yeah, just like it might not necessarily matter if it was deliberate, but I for some reason I'd like to know if it was meant to be as chaotic as it feels.
you know what it might just be. It might just be she wanted it to make this a musical.
I think.
It might just be that simple. She just wanted this to have songs.
Well, judging
And
by her
so-
other catalog, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think so.
But
Like,
no, this
she
would be
just
the
wanted to have
craziest
songs.
music video I've ever seen. Like, you didn't get, okay, maybe, you know, you did. Like, that's where the pop art comes in with the surrealism.
Yeah.
A lot of early music videos did have the staccato editing we were talking about, but
That's true.
there's so
Which,
much,
by
like,
the way, is the weird. Like, I love that he's just
Yeah.
such a god that the movie jump cuts for him, but for no one else.
yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That's one of my favorite parts.
So
Is when
cool.
it's after the part where he says, "I can't get no satisfaction." It like jump cuts as he's like tap dancing across the screen. It keeps skipping frames, and I'm like,
think
all
it's
right.
a dangerous like goose chase because like even at the end you're like, well they start at a real house and then they're running through like the creation of a house, or the creation of culture, the creation of pop culture.
It's the Dario Argento thing where it's like they just enter
that's
this horror land.
That's definitely when it gets really good to me. Also, like he exists almost like as like a confrontation of the artifice of film, where like his ability is almost to like manipulate the filmic language itself. And
he's
like,
God.
And
Literally
when he falls down, when he I think he dies, right? Like when
he's burned to death and he falls off a cliff.
His death in a sense. Like that's when I feel like when he's bringing on the music, he's almost like creating it like diegetically, but then it becomes non-diegetic as it continues on as he's dying. It's great.
Yeah, like I like to think the characters can hear the soundtrack as it.
But the characters, like they set that up with the Tokyo Convertible. That's literally a song they're listening to on the radio. Like almost every song is like.
It's supposed to be diegetic.
That's what I mean. It's like
hold on. It's supposed to be diegetic as in it takes place in the world of the film. But then like even when he comes on, but then when he dies, like I think it just diegetic.
It does.
Or it's blurring the realities together. And that's what it is. Like,
to be fair, he's not actually dead at that point.
What the fuck is the difference though between him and their band? I don't understand his vision of rock and roll versus the all-girl band, unless it's masculine.
I think it's masculine. I think it's straight masculine and like.
But I don't think he's straight masculine because of shoving phallic objects in three dudes.
Yeah, I agree. Because my initial reaction was that he's like the culture of rock stars, but like he's not really. No. He's not like Mick Jagger or David Bowie, and like all the narrative surrounding them about like shit they did to women and underage girls, like none of that is really applied to this guy. So I thought that's where they were heading with it, but they don't really go down that route. Like the like predatory aspect to rock star culture. It doesn't really go down that route when I thought it was going to. So I was thrown off by that.
I'm not too surprised it didn't, honestly. Because I feel like I don't know how much this film is actually about anything specific.
No,
there is some when it comes to trauma, but outside of that, like you get elements. I see it almost like in terms of a scrapbook aesthetic, where you're taking different things and putting it together. And in that sense, I can see the pop. Exactly.
It's weird. It's great. I loved watching it.
Oh no, I was really into it. It just presents so many problems for me.
I understand why.
I really loved it. It's just like, do I engage with it or do I not? If I engage with it, do I miss the point?
Yeah, and then what way do you engage with it?
I think it's worth engaging with. Again, because
but what do you mean by engaging?
Like I'm deliberately choosing and like I'm parsing through. I'm picking what I want to engage with and what I don't.
But isn't that the nature of the pop art, like kind of like construction?
That's the nature of surrealism. Pop art, you're not even supposed to like.
But then it's surreal.
Pop art is more about like commodification of art and the easy replication of art. So I guess that gets into this here because it
does, but also like the way
tropes,
we engage with it too. Yeah, I think it's definitely pop-up surrealism in that sense.
like art as a product, which this does sort of do.
Could we fit that into The Killer at all? Like at all?
What art as a
he's killing it, right? Like he's killing it.
I don't know, just because he has too much power, and I feel like if we were to look at him as like a product, that he'd be more limited or more kind of like at the mercy of forces outside himself, whereas he's very in control of everything around him. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Or like there is an innocence to the girls they need to hold on to, and the spirit of rock and roll is about corruption. Like
that's like the closest thing to a clear like through dialogue statement of what's going on in the movie that happens, which is the repeated thing like don't go all the way, which is not, but that's also at the same time not really like a thing she struggles with, because she just like she's very confident in her sexuality and she just wants to have a relationship with this guy and she's not really worried about it. So it's I don't know, it's interesting. It's weird, like she's never like preyed on in any sense aside from this guy, this rock star figure, who is, to be fair, a product of her imagination. So I guess you could argue that's a reflection of her anxieties, but these anxieties don't really seem to pressure on her real world decision making or affect it in any sense. So I don't know. I guess you could argue there's some like
the darker parts of her attraction, like what she actually wants.
I can see that.
This dude is like vanilla as fuck that she's like with.
I love when he says he
gives her vanilla cake. He's vanilla as fuck.
He calls her a bad girl and she says, "Not me, you must be thinking of someone else." And it cuts to him looking directly into the camera. He says, "No, I'm thinking of you." I was like, this smooth motherfucker. It's great.
No, but maybe like The Killer's like the nightmare version of her attractions, because he's kind of.
I could see that, because think about this. Yeah. Like, it opens with her like thinking about like that like.
She has a dream about sex. Yeah.
And then she's haunted throughout the day. It's almost like, there's like nightmares and daydreams, but then there's also like the daily nights. Maybe it's kind of like this mismatch of like what she wants. Also, like maybe he's like the evil like distortion.
Exactly.
And what she and like she's like, and like it's part of her. But it haunts her, and she wants to like be conform, right?
That's
to normal sensibilities of like when it comes to just about everything. But then also there's like this like anti-conformist like nature of her interaction with boys, with women.
And what's the sign of like the eternal sign of high school male normative conformity? It's a fucking football and like good abs and shit. And like that's who he is in her dreams. Like
instead of like this quasi weird.
Well, if there's anything you say she's passionate about, it's like her friends and the art or music that they create together, which is rock and roll.
She just wants to hang out with the ladies. Yeah.
I think
maybe
I am okay. Jacob, you tricked me into engaging with this movie so much more than I anticipated. Yeah, I think that this is like her nightmare attraction.
I think I'm agreeing now.
Okay, if both those dudes were standing right here, I would fuck the fucking vanilla dude. I'd hang out with the drill guy. I'd get drilled by the drill guy. Oh my god.
I don't know. I'll say the vanilla guy. He's of age.
He's clearly like 35.
Yeah, all the guys in this movie are like,
but not diegetically, non-diegetically, but yeah.
I'd be a Tokyo convertible.
It's pretty gay of you.
Hey, rock and roll never dies.
Rock and roll never die. No, it's good. It's good. I
great.
That element of her, I guess, psychology, we could call it.
Yeah, I like that. Like, can we call her psychology a psychology? I don't know.
I mean, I think horror is just kind of on some level inherently Freudian, or like psychoanalysis always finds its way into these, just because you're meant to see how
you're dealing with dreamscapes. I mean, the guy who wrote interpretation of dreams are gonna have to go to Freudian language.
Yeah, that, and even in more like straightforward like Halloween, the link is pretty clearly there. Michael comes from white suburbia and he comes to murder white suburbia, so on and so forth.
I don't know if you guys ever heard of like Scream, but there's like mommy issues in that.
Yeah, no, there's always like this analytic component to horror.
It was only a matter of time.
In every video.
It was only a matter of time. But no, I agree.
I agree, though. Yeah.
And in Scream too.
The question asked is just like, why does it? Again, I already said this earlier, I guess, but like, why does it manifest in this way or choose to manifest in this way? And she doesn't really seem to know, but I don't know. And I guess that's part of it.
I don't know why we acted like it was a big deal or not. Is that a landline?
There's a phone ringing.
You're living in a museum? Where are you?
No one uses it either. That's the weird part.
No big deal. No big deal. We're keeping this in.
I was about to say, what the fuck? Still going. What was I saying?
I don't know, Jacob.
Oh yeah, I think I guess maybe to some extent this movie is about her trying to work through why, kind of self-analyze and work through why her fears are manifesting this way. Because I think if she does, because I guess I'm having like a revelation right now. I guess because my question was like, the killer seems to represent all these toxic things or fears about men or what men will do in sex to her, whereas in her day-to-day interactions that doesn't seem to weigh on her. She doesn't seem nervous around men in any way. In fact, she seems to seek them out. She seems excited to pursue a relationship. So but now I'm thinking maybe that's deliberate to some extent because she's not aware of her own issues.
Well, I think, or maybe it's almost kind of like this unconscious reflection versus the conscious state.
The unconscious, you say?
The self.
Yep.
The unconscious self.
Yeah.
Yeah, the self. She creates her own problem. And by the way, I don't think we've mentioned that she ends up in a mental hospital.
I was about to ask about the original mental hospital friend. Is she from the first film?
Again, it's been a while. I think what they said at the beginning of this film is that she's in the first movie, but she's the sister of one of the other girls in the first movie.
It was a massacre at the Cravens, wasn't it? It was a massacre at the Cravens. I remember that line.
Yeah, and the other girl got fucked up by the experience, and then she's like, "I'm fine," and then she goes to bed, and Mick Jagger comes into her nightmares to kill her with a guitar. So then she wakes up and she's like, "I'm fine."
I'm not sure it's Craven anymore, but I feel like it was the Cravens, the West Cravens. I feel like...
Oh, the Cravens? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I can see that.
I feel like it was a...
Again, this is like a nightmare. They do the bathtub scene. Like,
the thing about Nightmare on Elm Street is like we could like vividly, like with a lot of like framework and ground to stand on, talk about so many themes that are like there.
Nightmare on Elm Street could not possibly be more clear about what it's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Could not possibly be more clear. It's great. That's why that movie. That, if anything, my biggest problem with Nightmare on Elm Street is that it's not enough like a dream because I can parse it so easily.
Yeah,
I love, for the record, I love that movie to pieces.
I love it too.
So many times. But I'm saying like it's not really surreal because you can easily pick it apart and figure out. You can distinguish between real and fake very easily.
It's more about like the living, like the living and waking a day in conjunction with dreams more than it is with dreams. Does that make sense? It's more about like the effect of dreams on the waking day.
And the Slumber Party Massacre too. Yeah, I didn't want to engage with it as much, but I've been like roped into it. Like Jacob's having, I think we're all having mini revelations about this film that we thought was just so.
I was kind of didn't really know if I really wanted to do this video while watching the movie. I'm like, I do like the movie. It's just that like sometimes I don't know if I really should try to make sense out of dreams. You know.
Oh no, there are certain parts where I'm like, I see the chicken, like the raw chicken jump out of her from the fridge. I'm like, I'm just gonna ignore it and not engage with that at all. Whatever.
I don't know. I just know I wanted to talk about.
I'm not even gonna engage with the baptism with DJ, and that's fascinatingly filmed. Like,
which one?
Like, the one where he's like fucking with her about the headache, and then like start speaking in that big voice about baptizing her. Your sins will be washed away from you. And like, I know I can't.
Oh yeah,
but I won't.
yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
And it's wonderfully filmed.
Yeah.
No, it's the whole thing is beautifully filmed. I love when he's going after the girl, the singer, and he just flicks the light switch, and all of a sudden, all these stroby neon lights show up in this house, and the music kicks in.
And I also thought, like, I haven't been like low key shamed, but I have been like
Implicitly
there's always
shamed.
one person I call really hot in every movie we do out of nowhere, and then like Jacob's like, watch Slumber Party Massacre too. I'm like, fine, I'll take this test. I'll do it.
Who is it this time?
Kimberly MacArthur is her name, right? Not Misha Barton. The one who looks like Misha Barton, but with like insane fucking mommy milkers. Kimberly MacArthur. That thing.
I would have taken that better last time.
I'm not objecting.
I would have taken that better with Jennifer Tilly.
Well, man, you guys left me so hanging.
If you had
Jennifer
just
Titty
gone that
shit.
far with the Bride of Chucky,
I just said Jennifer Titty. I did.
Well, so when it comes to Bride of Chucky, I'll stand here, but for that, again.
I mean, this is a better movie than Bride of Chucky.
That's what this is meant to be. That's what this is meant to be. You're supposed to engage with it. Like,
but there is a bisexual quality, because even the character I'm talking about, Amy, watching the car with like the redhead dude or whatever, and they're both spraying each other, and they're both getting like kind of glorious moments of their bodies. It's like,
No, I agree. I think this is incredibly bisexual.
I would almost call it like homo adjacent. Bisexual.
Homo adjacent.
Oh, it's homo adjacent. I want to get drilled by the killer, and I want to marry Amy, the mommy milkers.
They literally. There's a scene where two women look at each other and they just sing a song about how they want to be with each other forever together, and then she leaves that car and immediately goes to make out with this dude. And like,
I want to be your Tokyo convertible dude. I want to cover that song. It's such a good song.
Make that the thumbnail or the title for this video. I want to be your Tokyo convertible.
Sure, yeah. I'll bury the searchable part of it.
It's a long title already.
Get a bunch of weebs on the fucking...
Slumber Party Massacre 2, I want to be your Tokyo convertible. An analysis by Zachary whatever Conan. Just full names in the video.
Dox everyone.
Dox everyone who lives at this address.
Yeah, I'm in Kansas.
I fair enough.
When I first made my first video, I had this long title. I said like textual analysis of blah blah blah. I'm like, and guess what? After I changed the title, I got like 1,000 views.
I will say like this is probably the most like all over the place thing we've done, and I kind of expected that going in. I just really wanted to talk about it.
Well, how do you structure it? With the normal slashers, it can go character by character, death by death, even, or even.
But that all happens in the last 20 minutes here, so like.
Yeah. Which we didn't even do. We didn't even talk about a death outside of the killers, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. They're all pretty great.
And there's so many things you can bite into, like when DJ dies against like the garage door after banging on the door of the house, which, by the way, the old people listen to classical music inside, not rock and roll music, and he opens it up and goes, "Damn kids!" Like there's obviously so much like overt like shit you can pick up on there.
Yeah, the Halloween thing.
Right? Yeah, acne. Like,
yeah, I'm just like refusing. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh my god.
It's a throw everything in, just make it happen.
It works. It's literally everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah. All her obsessions just went into this movie. I guess you could say that makes this like a really good movie to psychoanalyze the director for, because it says more about her than anything else.
Which I would like to hang out with her, given the material of this movie. Make me a mixtape or something.
Tag her on Twitter.
I've said a million times that the music in this movie is all great.
Yeah.
It's all great music.
Yeah, you would love, I don't know if I mentioned how much I was reminded of Phantom of the Paradise, like in the video. We talked about it before.
No, you didn't yet.
Like, it's such a Brian De Palma, like Phantom of the Paradise type of feel, which like you guys would love. Like, you both have to watch the.
I haven't seen Phantom of the Paradise. I love Body Double, which De Palma made. That reminds
I've only seen
me
like Carrie and a couple
Paradise, I think
others.
Paul Williams, like he stars in it. I also think he does all the music for it too, and it stars Jessica Harper, I believe, from Suspiria.
Okay.
And it's amazingly filmed, and it's very much so like this, like rock and roll, like stars like killing each other. Just more coherent, but since it's De Palma, somehow more perverse even.
But
I wouldn't even call it perverse, to be honest. I didn't even get a perverse feeling. It's a blow-up doll sucking on toes. I didn't even.
I was about to say, like, we keep calling this incoherent, but like, it's a super relaxing movie to watch.
Right?
Like, it's
Well, yeah, that's what I said. I was watching it, and Zach was like, and I was just saying, I don't know if I want to talk about this. And then I was like, I think I just want to go to sleep.
It's really just pleasant to watch. Again, like at least an hour, like 2/3 of this movie is just girls hanging out, having a nice time. With
you know what? Maybe that's all movies should be. Girls hanging out.
Hey, this is our hot girl summer video.
This is peak hot girl summer movie. They're just hanging out. One of them has problems, but they're all supporting each other.
They're like, of the video.
Hot girl summer.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, director's name.
Just girls being gals. Just what's better than this? Just a bunch of heterosexual women hanging out.
They're homo adjacent.
Anybody got any closing thoughts on this? Let's start with me, just saying, like, I had such a pleasant time with this movie. It was so much fun. It was up my alley in a way that, yes, Jacob loves to select movies that takes me completely off track of, like, the trajectory.
I was worried you were gonna find it boring.
No, this is the best kind of departure. This is like the best departure you've suggested so far, because it was just so much fun, and it was. To me, one of the most irresistible movies to like. Like, you can put this on at a party, people will like it. You can put it on with, like, just one other person in a slightly intellectual setting, and people will like it. It's just so irresistible to like.
No, I agree.
And now, Justin, your last words.
It was good.
That's okay. Jacob.
I don't know. You said it best. I agree. I don't know. It's just a really fun movie. Like I said, I watched it. I had no idea what to make of it. I just knew I wanted other people to watch it, and I wanted to talk about it. I kind of expected this to take on more of a dialogue format where we're just kind of randomly working through it without a thesis.
There are different, like, freeze frames you can go to where Justin's like, oh, and me, I'm like, oh. And you in the same way.
We need to start recording ourselves watching these movies.
I'm not going to do that. I was planning what picture I was going to put for my face.
I clicked on, like, a film tuber, like, doing that once, but it wasn't, like, labeled correctly, and I'm just watching it for, like, 30 seconds of just him, like, doing this. I'm like, what am I watching? And then it goes, timestamp 35 seconds. I'm like, oh, he's watching a fucking movie.
I hate that shit.
You don't need to see me go in real time. Check out them mommy milkers. You don't need to see that.
But the faces I was making, I was like, I know that I was like, come on, Jacob. I told Zach, I'm not going to do this one.
And I told you were.
And I'm like,
I mean, it was more because Zach and I seemed ready to talk, but Zach was with you, so it just seemed obvious we were going to make you watch it and talk about it anyway.
We had a double feature of Slumber Party Massacre 2, and then we put on, because we're going to do a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton movie one. It's the wildest double feature I've been through. By the way, Tim Burton, way more psychopathic.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I really want, Charlie talking about more psychopathic. Yeah, okay.
I don't really have much opinion on that one. I'd have an easier time talking about Alice in Wonderland, but
I hate that one. I hate Alice in Wonderland.
Just thank you so much for selecting this one, Jake.
Yeah, anytime. I'll live up to that next time when I pick Butterfly Murders 2 for you.
Well, guys, stay tuned. Jacob and I will be talking about disturbing behavior next time. It's now now written down in lightning, and we're going to talk about it.
I'm excited.
All right. Thank you guys for watching Your Cult Boyfriend, and Silent Substance once again, and Jacob over here, MVP. Thank you for watching. Have a good time. I want to be your Tokyo convertible.